Morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Today is the 25th, and we're facing a pretty um, bad situation here in the deep south in the upcoming days as far as heat goes. It's going to be the heat index is going to be really high, almost approaching 115 degrees um, towards at the first part of next week. At least that's a forecast anyway. So briefly, I want to go over the water vapor loop here for the continental United States. And today's focus is going to be primarily on the upcoming heat, um, the current flooding that's going on here in the middle of the country here, and this tropical system, potential tropical system that is running out of time to do anything here, moving. Looks like it's almost ready to move onto the coast. It's kind of envelope of moisture is rotating kind of this way. Not really doing a lot of movement right now, but you can see a push of dry air from the from the east, and this is the beginning of a high pressure building in this way, which is going to overspread the deep south and bring the high temps that we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. Of course, you know that at the mid levels, at all levels really, the presence of drier air means less precipitation. But um, when you see this much drier at the mid levels, especially down here in the tropics, um, or anywhere really, it doesn't lend itself well for um, precipitation. However, mid level, when it comes to severe weather, if there's just enough drier air, warm dry air above moisture layer, that can help facilitate severe weather. So it really depends on the situation, but we're talking about deep dry air. Usually can mix down the surface, and doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be cooler, but it'll, with high pressure loft, suppress precipitation chances. Anyway, it seems that we got ongoing flooding here in the middle part of the country right now. The deep southerly flow moving up this way. Stalled funnel boundary likely. You can see the deep flow going all the way up into the northeast. What looks like a mid to upper level low off the west coast of the U.S., which has kind of been a persistent feature for quite a while now. And when you have the nature wants to balance itself, the atmosphere does. So when you have low pressure on one area, high pressure tends to build in response in others. Anyway, first thing I'm going to talk about is the excessive heat that's going to be coming up. Then I'm going to talk about the excessive rainfall that's going on right now and flooding risk over the coming days. And I'm going to touch briefly on the tropics as well. So what's driving this heat? If you look at the mid levels, we have mid-level flow here. This is the European model, and it's mean flow at the mid levels of the atmosphere. It kind of takes all its members and shows a mean average of where it thinks the different features will be. go through time here. Troughing builds along the west coast. See the mid-level high building right over the southeast U.S. By Monday, 597, which is an indication of the height of the high pressure system, right? And in my next part of this, I'm going to show you the European and its anomalies, like height anomalies, that gives you a good look at how the strength of this high pressure system compares to normal this time of year. Move forward in time. You have that big low building up into the northern into Canada there, and troughing is built along the east coast, thankfully, with cooler temperatures building into the northeast by the 2nd of August. Heat building out to the west, and you see that pattern of high pressure. It really doesn't move any. Wow. So we're getting out the 9th, and when we get out this far, the features tend to be less resolved. So the general sense here is that we have a pretty zonal flow, not much amplification, maybe a high pressure system out west, which not with a little bit of troughiness along the east coast. But generally, at least according to this model, let's look at the GFS, see what it thinks. Generally, it's about the same. A little more, it's thinking there's a little more high pressure building out west, which is going to bring a lot more heat there, a little more troughiness along the east. But in general, a lot less amplification of the flow. As we go through later, I don't hate to take it out this far, but that's as far as the GFS goes for this run. Anyway, that's a general theme over the next week or so. High pressure builds into the east and slowly slides to the west, and troughiness builds in the east, which ultimately bring cooler temps. So, what does that mean? Let's look at a high pressure anomalies here at 500 millibars. Do you see the? And 500 millibars is halfway up in the atmosphere, right? So these deeper oranges and deeper I don't know, purples, green, blues. The deeper colors indicate a higher anomaly, right? And so you have a deep orange here, so that is like 10 millibars. Okay, anomaly. That's different than normal, right? So we move through in time. High pressure, it's forecast to have a higher pressure than normal all along the East Coast. And then slowly, this is Tuesday, see that low pressure building. You see really strong height falls. I mean, height rises up in the Canadian, up in Western Canada, really. So I have a feeling there's going to be a heat wave going on in Canada in the coming days. You see the anomalies kind of shift towards neutral, almost none. And again, anomalies are above what is expected this time of year. So you can see that high pressure just anomalies continue. Not quite as strong later in the period, but then building back again in the Canadian Maritime, not Maritimes, in Canada. The general theme is towards, let's see, the 8th, which is, I don't know, 8 or 9 days out. Actually, it's almost 2 weeks out, but I don't want to go any further than that. Because really the models don't do a good job that far out. Anyway, if you go back to closer, you know, next, let's go to Tuesday. You can see, the height rises and what that means, and especially centered around Chicago area, Illinois, Wisconsin, stuff like that. But down the south, it's going to be especially bad because humidity levels are going to be so high, and the heat index, how it feels when you're outside, is going to be extreme, to say the least. So how's that reflected in our temperatures every day? So we'll go through this. This is a 24-hour max mean temps, which is the average temps, high temps each day. So today, 91 by 18Z. Okay. So Saturday, supposed to be 96. Sunday, 97. Monday, 100. And this, I'm just looking at here, but that's the actual temperature in Fahrenheit for cat forecast. That's pretty bad, even for the South. Tuesday, 101. All the southern tier of the U.S. except for the Northeast, and even the Mid-Atlantic is going to get in on this. So go through Wednesday, 102 possibly near middle Georgia, all along, just pretty much in the same areas. Thursday, cooling off slightly. Cooling off to 98, but you can see the cool air starting to build in here. 70s, 80s. So high temps. I'll take temps being in the 80s or 90s after 100s like that. And overall, hot temperatures will build more out to the west, obviously, like we talked about, and along the east, cool down some by the 8th. And hopefully it'll stay that way for a little while. What does that mean as far as hazardous heat goes? Well, if we look at today, this is a hazardous heat map that highlights the heat risk associated with these higher temps. And a lot of it's based on location and how hot it's going to be compared to normal, and also the temps at night. If they don't cool off a lot at night, they puts a lot more stress on people who don't have air conditioning because you never get to cool off. So it's really a lot of factors that go into play, but part of it is how it feels, right, outside. So, and you can see left here, red, major for the extreme. No overnight relief. We go today, pretty much the first third of the country here is going to be under some kind of risk. Some in the northern tier and along the in the desert southwest. shifts eastward, fills back in all the way up into the Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, and gets really bad in along the Mid-Atlantic, North Carolina, South Carolina. It starts to build into Georgia. Monday is when it gets. You could see where the most, like I showed you, where the temps are going to be the hottest, and heat index are going to be. We're talking. This is kind of rare for this area to be in this extreme of a heat, or uncommon. We're used to hot temperatures down here, but even this is really bad. I mean, I wouldn't go outside if you paid me to do anything. Kind of, you can see what happens. Some heat building here along the west coast, New Mexico, and you can see what happens. It's getting shunted to the south here over time. And a good portion of the country cools off, really. Kind of bisects the nation here when you get into next Thursday. So thankfully, yeah, it'll be cooler. That's a welcome break after in the middle of summer, especially. So this is something I found. It gives a good idea of the heat index outlook and what the this is July 30th through August 3rd heat index outlook. So the shades indicate the probability that maximum heat index will be equal or higher than the normal maximum heat index. Probability greater than 90 degrees Fahrenheit. July 30th, August 3rd, 95%. You can see where the line is here. You see even probability greater than 100, still pretty high. 105, still 30%. 110, 115. So, you know, and this is your 6 to 10 day heat index outlook, right? Like I showed you. Probability that it'll exceed the maximum heat index, normal maximum heat index. Pretty sure at this point um, that it's going to exceed 100 degrees during that period. So this is the messages from the National Weather Service about the heat indexes and the maximum heat risk Friday through Wednesday. You can see we showed that already, but the maximum heat index Friday through Wednesday, especially along the coastline here, nearing Atlanta, and along in the mid Mississippi Valley, low Mississippi Valley, Mississippi, Louisiana, could have heat index values approaching 115 in spots. So they stress this here. This will be a long duration heat wave with little and overnight relief and high humidity, leading to increased danger. And heat index values potentially exceeding 115. So please, please, please check on your loved ones. Make sure air conditioning is working. If you got friends out there don't have air conditioning, maybe help them buy just one air conditioner, window air unit. At least they can get some relief. The people that don't have air conditioning right now are going to suffer mightily during this period. And, they're, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of people out there that don't have homes and they're on the street. They're going to suffer too. So maybe buy them a bottle of water or something like that. Give it to them, or I don't know what to do, but just be try to help those that can't help themselves. So, like we talked about, there's a day 3 to 7 hazards outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. Like we talked about, hazardous heat shifting eastward to the end of the month. Heavy rain expected in the next couple of days in the desert southwest, um, Michigan, upper Midwest here, uh, through the 27th through 28th, and the Northeast, heavy rains expected on the 27th. So we be praying for rain down there in the hazardous heat areas, and these people are going to be getting too much. So you never can have it both ways, can you? So anyway, I'm going to say it again. Please prepare for this heat. I know doesn't have flashy headlines or anything like that, but people can die from this heat exposure, and I'd hate to hear about that, especially given how much social media we have and everybody can get information these days, almost everybody. So there should be no surprise this is coming. So check on your loved ones. If you have somebody living in another part of the country, they don't have something, have somebody go check on them. Anyway, and the ongoing flooding that's happening, you can see numerous flood warnings and numerous mesoscale discussions highlighting those flood warnings, all on the periphery of this high pressure building in here. We have what could be possible tropical development, although I think the chances are quite low. Of course, National Hurricane Center thinks so too. And we have some heat advisories, extreme heat warnings, along the Mississippi Valley down into Texas, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, and up in Massachusetts, Connecticut. So as far as rainfall outlook goes, today, this is till 12Z, you can see the moderate risk excessive rainfall, and that pans out based on what's going on right now. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of that in the past month or so. Uh, some larger risk on the Gulf Coast and along the Cascades. Slight risk of excessive rainfall shifts to the northeast and moves further inland along the Gulf Coast and up into the northeast here, North Dakota, parts of Minnesota, again, northern California mountains, into Oregon, parts of Nevada. Day 3, you have a marginal risk in these areas here: Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Day 4 through 5. Slight risk shifts back west again. The high pressure is getting firmly entrenched here around the periphery of this high, really. You know what I mean? So that's that. And then severe weather. Categorical for today. Slight risk, North Dakota, in the northeast quarter here. A large area which is around where that frontal boundary is, likely due to heavy rainfall. Probably a short way move to the flow up here in North Dakota on the front range of the Rockies, marginal risk. Chance of thunderstorms, a wide area in the United States here. You go back, tornado risk, 2%. Up in far North Dakota, part of Minnesota. Wind risk, Of course, yellow area is 15%, brown 5%. Hail, of course, in the up here in North Dakota, South Dakota again, 5% and 15% risk. Go to day 2, categorical again. We have our marginal risk out west here. Another marginal risk at Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, parts of Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, driven by mostly wind, 5%. Oops, yeah, 5% risk, and hail up here. Day 3, categorical. Large, still a large area, thunderstorm possibilities, but big hole here in Georgia and Alabama. Marginal risk here up in the northern tier. So lastly, I'm going to go over the tropics real quick, and that'll be it for today. All right, so I wanted to start off with this radar shot off of Galveston coast, where this potential tropical system is. You see this little low swirl here? Pretty interesting feature. I wonder, it looks like it's associated with this whole area here that's moving eastward. And if you look on the satellite loop, we can zoom in a little bit. I don't know if it'll give me a localized sector here. Kind of see not a lot of convection associated with it, mostly a low level swirl, but it looks like it's about to move on shore, so not much of a chance of doing much, I don't think. That may not be anything more than a transient feature, but it's pretty cool anyway. Anyway, chance of this developing is only 10% still. And given the lack of organization and convection, I really doubt much is going to happen with it. That being said, let's do a quick future outlook. I want to show you all this. This is that experimental European models that I show you. You see a lot of activity out in the West Pacific, of course. And you see this here. This is something I didn't see, wasn't going on yesterday. These models are depicting these European ensembles. A lot of models are showing development here in the mid-development region, at least for a little while. And then, of course, the global models fall off, and you only have the experimental ones left. And this is August 6th, going through the end of the period, obviously. Not a lot of faith in the rest of this. But the the Climate Prediction Center did outline this area for potential development. It's a little bit too big. In the first part of August. But if this trend continues here, we might see an outlook for this system the next day or so. We'll see what happens. So, in reference to that, let's look over a few of the ensemble members. This is the American model ensembles, which consists of 31 members, and each number represents a pressure that it thinks each model run represents. Tongue-tied. The last two digits of the number represent the last two digits of the pressure, so 1014. And each number represents one model run ensemble member. So we go through in time here. kind of loses it as you get further along. And then let me go back to this and see when this brings it up. August 1st. Okay, let's go back. August 1st. What I was looking at before, interestingly enough, it has some stuff in the Gulf of Mexico too. But that's what we're talking about here. Got ahead of myself. It has something potentially here. Really hard to say. Doesn't I'm not too bullish on it right now, with at least from the American model. With the European, let's go further a little bit to the first. This is the ensembles. Had a bit of agreement, even though there's only 51 members here. Total, there's probably maybe 20 that show something. And this is the latest run. Let's go back one run. Last one a little more bullish on it. Go forward in time. Quite a few members show something. And looks like you want to develop it further as you get further out in time, and as far as the European goes. We'll have to see the 0Z model run doesn't really play that out like that. I'm not quite as bullish on development, at least out there. So if we go to the super ensembles, let's go through the first. Maybe something here, but not a lot of agreement on anything. And then, of course, you get further out in time, it's not even worth talking about at this point, at least for the Atlantic Basin. You can see in the Pacific Basin, East Pacific, I have a feeling there's going to be quite a bit of activity coming up. Anyway, in the coming days, I'll probably spend more time talking about the tropics, but I don't want to make this video too long. I hope you all have a good Friday, and appreciate you tuning in, and have a great day.